Okay, let's move on. And the next topic we want to cover is nested loop. Okay, well, and we are putting a for loop inside another for loop. And remember, we did something similar. We can put a if and else inside another if, a outer if branch or an outer else branch, right? So in this way, we have a nested if and else, and we can do the iterations in the same way. We can put one iteration inside another iteration. Okay, if you want to use this one as example, we are for the outer loop. So outer iteration, we have the for I in the range 5. So how many runs are we going to run the outer iteration? 5 times, right? And then, well, for each iteration in the body of the for loop, we happen to see another inner iteration, and that is for j in the range of 3. So for each outer loop, we are going to run the inner iteration for how many times? You see the range 3, right? Range 3 means there will be a 3 iterations there. Okay, so if we want to grab this code, and then let's just run that. Print hyphen hyphen plus plus. Okay, yep, and then 10. And then if I want to run this code, and what are we gonna see? We for each iteration, for each of the inner loop, we print I and we print j. And then what are we gonna have is at the very first round, I will be 0, right? So the first member of the range 5 will be the 0. And then how about j? J will iterate from 1, 2, and 3. Oops, 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so j will be 0, 1, and 2. So in the first round, I is 0, j is 0. And the second round, we have not finished the inner iteration yet. So the next round, I is still a 0, but j will be a 1. So we got this. And the next round, j is going to be 2. So 0 and 2. So we have this line. And after that, we have already used the j to finish 0, 1, and 2. So the inner loop has been finished for once. So we go back and then we visit the next value in the range 5. We have already used the I to visit 0. So now the second value we are going to use I to visit will be 1. So I will be 1 again, and then we start the inner iteration for another round. So j will start from 0 again. So we will have 1 and 0. And then the next round, j after using j to finish 0, j will be 1. And after that, j will be 2. So that's the reason we are going to have 1, 1 and 1, 2. So after we use j to finish 2, and then what? The body of the inner iteration will be finished. So we go outside and and then we are going to use I to visit another possible member. We have already used the I to finish 0 and 1, so I will be 2. And then eventually we are going to use j to visit 0, j will be visit 1, and j will visit 2. So where do we stop? The last round, the last possible value of the I will be 4. And then the last possible value of the j will be 2. So eventually, after printing 4 and 2, we stop, right? Okay, so the nested iteration can definitely be confusing, but remember, we are just plugging in a iteration to the body of another iteration, so we have a nested iteration. Okay, Well, and this is another example, and I think this is really cool that we add this separator here. So I also want to do something similar here. Oops. So print, say done for one outer round. Okay, well, I'm just using this one as a reminder. So now if I ask you what is the body of the outer iteration, and then what is that? This part, right? The body of the outer iteration will be a inner iteration and plus a print, and that print is done for one outer round. And then if you run this again, and it will give you some of the hint on when we finish one outer iteration. So after we do 0, 0, 0, 1, and 0, 2, and then we will print this done for one outer round. So I equals 0 is done, and then we move on, and then I will be 1, and then we do another iteration like this. So we done for another outer round, and then we increase I again, and I will be now a 2, right? So if we see this one, and it's kind of similar, we are using I to visit all the numbers from 1 to 7, and J visit all the numbers from 1 to 7 2. And then inside we do a print 0 times 1 is 2. So 3 placeholders, and I'm plugging in I, J, and the product of I multiply J. Okay? And well, in this part, well, the indentation is definitely important, because if we indent the print this way, and we know this for loop, the inner for loop, and then the print, they both belong to the body of the outer iteration, right? And if we want to do something weird, how about we do this? And now, where does this line belong? Now this line belongs to the body of the inner iteration. So, well, when you are not careful with the indentation, when you are doing the iterations, then it's very easy for you to make mistakes. Okay, uh, we are about to finish. Well, the next thing we want to do is, well, we want to make it a table. That is 1 multiplied by 1, 1 multiplied by 1, 1 multiplied by 2, 1 multiplied by 3, and then 2 multiplied by 1, 2 multiplied by 2, 2 multiplied by 3. So we want to make it a table. And how do we do that? So for each line, we are going to have a total of 7 values. So for the inner iteration, you see, we don't want to have a line break unless we finish a whole line, right? So, well, and then I'm using the trick we talk about before, that is n equals the empty string. Well, I'm telling Python, don't give me a line break yet. And another thing is, well, what is this? That is a placeholder 0 colon 4. What does the colon 4 mean? Well, 0 means that is a placeholder number 0. But then the colon 4 means for that placeholder, Python, please give me 4 character space. If I'm not using everything, that's fine. Just keep the space for me. So in this way, if I'm printing the 1, if I'm printing the 1 here, that will be space 1. If I'm printing 2, that will be space 2, because space 2, because it will guarantee that I'm going to use a 4 character space. So how about 12? 12 will be space 1 and 2, so still 4 spaces. And by enforcing the 4 spaces for each of the output, and then we have a better table of numbers. Okay, and then the other question is, after finishing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 and 6, where do we do a line break? We want to do a line break here after we finish the inner iteration, right? So inside of this inner iteration, and then I'm printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 without a line break. But eventually, after we have finished the whole inner iteration, we do have to add a line break at the end of the body. So we end a print here. We print nothing, but remember by default, each print, Python will finish that with a line break. So at here, I'm printing nothing, but Python will do a line break for me. So that is the trick of this print. Okay? So, well, let's come back to this part. Well, when we visit all the characters one by one in the string, and we know we can do for I in the range from 0 to the length of the string. Well, that's okay, and then you can use the I as the index to visit the characters one by one, right? And we talk about the program like this. Say my string equals Python, and then I do for I in range of the length of my string, and then oops, and then I can print my string with square bracket I, and then I will have the python, and this is the word we know, and well, it works. And here is another word. Okay, so I want to have another line break, and then I can do for character in my string, and then I'm just printing the character. So for this word, this works the same way to this one, but the difference is, well, let me run this code first. Okay, so this one is the first word and this one is the second word, and they work exactly the same. Okay, for this one, I'm using I as a integer, and I will visit all the possible indexes in this string, and I'm also using the I as an index here to visit all the characters one by one. And how about this? I'm using the character as a control variable, and then I'm still using the char to visit all the characters one by one in my string. Or if you don't like the char, you change it to I, here, that's the same. Okay, if you run that, that's the same. So, well, do you like this word better, or you like this word better? It doesn't matter, and you need to be able to do both. And for this word, it's a little bit harder and you write a little more code. But the cool thing is now you have control of which index you are visiting for now. Okay? And let's come back to this example again. So we are visiting all the characters one by one, and then we are checking if the current character is a number or a comma. Okay, and if this one, the current character, is a comma, and then we throw that away, and otherwise we keep that. Well, if we want to use this trick for char in number, I'm using the control variable char to visit all the characters one by one in this string, and then if the current character is a substring of the 0 to 9 string, I'm keeping that. Otherwise, I'm throwing that away. So if you are using this version of the code and it works fine, and I would say this version of the code is a little bit cleaner than the code we see before. So I like this one a little bit better. Okay, so that's all the content I have prepared for today, and I know this is a harder lecture and I have written a lot of code, and hopefully you have been following me in doing the coding, and you should. You really have to write the code in order to learn how to do programming. Okay, so that's it, and I will see you in the next video talking about the exercises.